The Consumer Electronics Show has blown through Las Vegas, bringing, as always, a flurry of futuristic tech launches, promises, and some prototypes that will never see the light of day. But, in among the giant TVs and robotaxis, there were also some big moments for business tech.
From the dependable rollouts of AI PCs to novel and more powerful devices, a number of announcements have caught the eye of business leaders. You're listening to the ITPro podcast. Hi, I'm Jane McCallion.
And I'm Rory Bathgate.
And today we're speaking to ITPro's own reviews editor, Bobby Hellard, to explore some of the standout moments from CES 2025 and what it could mean for the year in business tech. Bobby, welcome back to the show.
Hello.
I'm looking forward to talking about this because CES, it's in the name, Consumer Electronics Show, but increasingly we are seeing technology that does have some real business applications. So let's kick off with something that's actually been knocking around for a little while, which is AI laptops. By a little while, I must admit, say 12 months, but yeah.
Yeah.
This seems to be one of the, most applicable and realistic forms of technology that was on show this year.
So yeah, the year of 2024 was the year of the AI PC. As we saw in our reviews, every other laptop we reviewed was an AI PC. It had an NPU chip, a Copilot button, or it was just branded AI PC. And it's led to loads of changes. Over the Christmas period, we had an article from Stuart Andrews about the differences these AI PCs are having, how they're being made differently, how we're using them differently. We are a bit suspicious and skeptical about how much AI is on them, because I don't think we're really seeing any changes to our workflow other than you can write an email a little bit quicker than normal. But it basically is changing the manufacturing and the marketing of laptops. I think the most notable changes are the names. So at CES, we had the biggest change was the end of the XPS, the death of the XPS. Dell has killed off the names, basically the fancy names of its laptops, and just replaced them with a more straightforward approach. So you've got Dell Pro, and Dell Pro Max. I know people will have their opinions on whether this is good or bad, but from our point of view for business IT, that's actually quite neat and tidy. So you've got these three different types of Dell laptop, and within that there's three brackets. So there's basic, pro, and premium. So it kind of explains it that there's from cheaper to like most premium, most special laptop. You can easily see what you want.
You could have a Dell Pro then?
Yes, I guess so. It's very Apple. Yeah, it's very Apple.
It is the Apple effect. A lot of people have said this, and by way of criticism, people have said this. But as you point out, Bobby, I guess from an IT perspective, it's like, which one of these three categories do you fall into? Great, we'll give you that one. It's no longer having to explain to people, what is an Inspiron?
Yeah. See, this is the thing. It makes sense to us, but Dell's actual explanation was that consumers find it too confusing. So like you said, like Inspiron, Latitude, XPS don't necessarily tell you what the device is.
Yeah.
I mean, me as the reviews editor, I know that the Latitude is the businessy device and the XPS is the fancy one. But from a consumer's perspective, that doesn't make any difference. So this is neater and easier to work out. If you're an IT manager, you can just straight away see, I want the middle of the road one, or I want the one with the best screen. It's kind of easy to pick your choice. And, laptops are not cars. They don't really need a sexy sounding name. Although HP did a similar thing last year, but it was for different reasons. Okay. So they dropped Spectre and Envy and Pavilion for EliteBook and OmniBook. Their reasoning was that they wanted it to specifically signal out that this is an AI laptop. Now, again, it doesn't really make much difference to the consumer.
Which one's the AI one? Because neither of, to me, Elite is does amazing stuff, and Omni is does everything, kind of a workhorse laptop. But are you about to tell me that the Omni one is actually the AI one?
No, I'm no clearer either, because I've seen both with AI. So it doesn't. They've done a worse job than Dell. But a friend of ours, Kumar Zafifi Sabet, had this problem. Rory, you'll know, he got really annoyed that they dropped Dragonfly. which I guess is the prosumer's opinion. There will be people that were quite attached to certain brands and certain names. But I think generally for the consumer and for the IT manager, this is kind of simpler and easier.
I'm going to go back to something that you said a moment ago, which was basically that at least some of this is marketing. Now, listeners know at this point, I think, how much of a cynic I am about almost everything and anything. And it does strike me, as you say, like how much AI is in there and where is this AI coming from? Because if it's pulling from an LLM online, then why is this an AI laptop? And is this just a triumph of marketing because everything's super sexy AI now?
I think everything is just a triumph of marketing. The laptops I've reviewed that are AI, I can't fully say that I've pushed them to their AI limits or like really worked any algorithms hard, because it is just a case of pushing the Copilot button, seeing what it does, seeing how quickly it can help you write an email. There is very little benefit as yet, but that's not really getting in the way of more laptops coming out. We're now seeing more mini PCs and desktops with AI. I think HP had a OmniBook Studio X, which was launched at CES, which I thought was quite impressive, but not for the use of AI on it. I'm yet to see the benefit.
So if you were recommending a device, or if you were a IT decision maker, somebody looking at buying new devices or doing a fleet refresh, is it the case then that really you should still be looking at the fundamentals of these laptops? Their size, their battery life, their resolution, memory, this, that, and the other, just how well it performs, rather than the AI status of it, for now at least.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'll go back to the Latitude, which I always used to recognize as the business device, the dependable one. And Dell would probably say that is the case. It's the one they market for businesses because it can do what they need to do. It's got all the basic features. The batteries are quite good and the processors are usually strong, but it's maybe lacking in the frills of a super graphics card or whatever. So as we say, if you're looking at new PCs, I don't necessarily think the AI PC is going to attract much interest as yet. What do you need it for? There's an advert going around. Have you seen it? The Apple advert, I think it is, where the guy writes a terrible email to his boss and then uses AI to make it sound really formal and really good. And everyone in the office is suddenly amazed how he's done it. But is that what we want our people to do? Because that's all it seems to suggest at the moment. So if you're an IT decision maker, I don't know if an AI laptop really has any weight to it at the moment, any real interest.
Oh, I'm simultaneously thinking I need to seek out that advert, but it's making me like preemptively angry. So we'll see how this goes.
I think what's kind of interesting for me about this AI laptop wave is that there's kind of two things going on there. There's the hardware level and the software level. There's the, okay, you've got Copilot there now, or maybe it's Apple Intelligence, as may be the case. It's a mixture of kind of cloud processing and on-device processing. But like you said, it kind of, what's the ultimate goal of that? Is it generating an email or coming up with a to-do list, which maybe you should be able to do yourself? And then there's the hardware level. There's a neural processing unit that more and more laptops are starting to have. And I guess you mentioned Stuart Andrews' piece that went up over the holidays. There are some use cases for an NPU listed in that. A lot of creative apps like DaVinci Resolve use them, Affinity Photo 2, Blender. I know that Apple's made a big deal about Final Cut Pro, the newest version, has some AI features like auto transcription, so for putting subtitles on videos, and also some rotoscoping features that use AI to try and track objects in a video and cut out the background away from the shots. But all of this feels a little bit like just another chip that most people using the laptop probably aren't thinking about, right? And most people probably aren't doing really intensive Blender work or really intensive Final Cut Pro work. And the spin of it being like it's the AI era because we have this new chip. I mean, I don't know. Did we do that when it was like, oh, it's the discrete graphics era? Now your laptop has a GPU. I don't think most people thought about that. It's just about what can it do that actually has any value for my business. And it's still quite niche, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And a lot of it feels like it's sort of dumping on the graphics designers and illustrators, kind of taking their jobs from them, or whatnot. And it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they'll be hard pressed to find many businesses that want those things solely on those use cases.
Mm. So let's move on. Nvidia, the darling of the moment in just about every sector of IT, had lots of stuff to show off at CES. So let's start with Project Digit. What is Project Digit and who is it for?
It's terribly named. I don't quite get Project Digits. It doesn't sound very appealing or memorable, but it's a mini PC powered with AI, perfect for devs because it's able to do intense AI workloads there and then. Earlier, I mentioned the HP Omni Studio, which I thought was a great device, but it was completely dwarfed when Nvidia came out with this. Usually from CES, you just get this influx of mad like TV designs, like a 136-inch TV or a see-through TV, and another load of crazy contraptions. But at least Nvidia's one felt real and great, particularly for us and IT decision makers. So it's built with a special GPU and a special CPU, and the way they both work together enables super fast transfer of data. So that's where the AI stuff comes on it. It's the Grace Blackwell super chip. Now, to be specific, it's a Blackwell GPU and then a Grace CPU with 20 cores. And the bit that's interesting is the NVLink C2C technology. So that's what enables the data to transfer quickly between the two, which is how you can process large language models on such a tiny thing. So it is quite exciting, as you can tell by my voice.
Yeah.
So I guess a little bit of a peek behind the curtain that we did just cut out you calling this a supercomputer rather than a mini computer, but actually your description of it very much fits with what a supercomputer is and how it works with the GPU and the CPU working in tandem. This is where you get the basis of parallel processing, and increasingly is where Nvidia is making its name. It's one of the reasons that it is making headway in the supercomputing space. So it is very exciting that you've got this wee thing. And it does look, I've only seen pictures, but it does seem very small, very compact, that you could just shove on your desktop and you do have a tiny supercomputer just sitting there. I guess one of the questions, as I said up top, is who this is for. Personally, we've discussed this, and I can kind of see two use cases. So you could have it on the desktop at work, and you've got this wee thing, and saves a lot of real estate from trying to find somewhere to put a tower or to carting a laptop back and forward. And equally for people working from home, remote workers who they're remote, but they're supposed to be working from or anticipated to be working from a single location, so a home office, say, rather than people who are moving around all the time. Once again, it's a small PC. You don't have to mess around with a laptop. You can have a good screen, a good monitor, and just this seems ideal to me. It's such a good idea. And that is all before you even get to any of the AI type stuff. So do you think that this might have broad appeal, kind of AI aside, Bobby?
I believe so. I mean, I'm slightly outside of my comfort zone with this bit, but I'm pretty sure you can use these mini PCs in a data center setup, in like as a collection of them into a server,
Okay.
which would be a high-powered server, but with mini PCs. So I assume it's got quite a few sort of use cases. From what Nvidia have said, it's 1 petaflop of AI performance, which again, all that says to me is that it can do a lot of AI. I don't specifically know what that means, but it sounds very big.
It's big and it's powerful.
It's a little bit difficult to benchmark these kinds of things, isn't it? Because so if you look up top 500, which keeps track of the 500 most powerful supercomputers in the world, a petaflop, give it 15 years ago, and a petaflop would have very comfortably had you on the list. As it stands right now, even within the top 500, number 500 is operating at around 2.3 petaflops. I guess the important thing to note here is that Nvidia has specifically said of AI performance.
Yeah.
This is fine-tuned for AI, and it uses a custom Unix operating system that's entirely geared towards AI development. So we can't exactly compare it like for like with these supercomputers that are very versatile and can be used for a lot of different things. But yeah, I think Nvidia specifically said that one of these could handle a large language model with up to 200 billion parameters. And you could pair them because of that NVLink technology. You can pair two of them together to work on an LLM with just over 400 billion, which would put you in the realms of some of the most performant that Meta has put out. So Llama 3.2, for example, has around that many at its largest size. So you're talking about frontier models here. You can do development, and I guess you could fine tune them from right there on your desk. I find the price probably the most interesting point. It feels like Nvidia's throwing the glove down at Apple here a bit to me, because it's $3,000 and it is tiny. Now, $3,000 is a lot for a consumer to spend, but if you're talking about an AI developer who maybe is otherwise looking at a custom build or buying something like a Mac Pro, which is significantly more, that will cost you between, I think, $4,000 and $7,000, depending on your configuration. It starts to kind of add up a bit. So I'd be interested to see, as these release, what people use them for. I'm sure that my Twitter feed will be full of people saying, I automated this part of my life. I figured out if you're not doing this, then you're already losing out. There'll be all kinds of blue check hype accounts talking about it. Yeah, there's a lot of potential there. I think the most interesting part of the announcement for me was that not only is the thing itself gold and sparkly, but Jensen Huang was wearing the sparkliest leather jacket I have ever seen. I think his jackets are just getting more and more elaborate as time goes on.
He is the Fonz of tech. I love him. I don't necessarily think we'll see the project digits on people's desktops as much. I think the technology inside it is probably what will be more popular. I mean, it's just a shiny little gold box. I think it just doesn't seem to me like it's going to be everywhere. It's the technology bit that's important that everyone's probably going to latch onto and incorporate themselves.
Well, if Nvidia would like to send us a review sample of Project Digit, if you are listening, Nvidia, please, we'd love to have one or more of these units to review.
Absolutely. I have no idea how I'm going to test that one petaflop of AI performance, but I'd love it.
So there was a sort of culture podcast that I was listening to that I can't think of the name of right now, but they were covering CES as well. And one of the things that they highlighted that they'd seen was sort of a resurgence in voice technology. Now, I don't know about everybody else, but I use Siri on my phone a fair amount. I occasionally speak to my Apple TV to do a search if it's something that I can't be bothered with typing out. But as they pointed out as well, voice is such a dodgy one because in some way it can speed things up or make it easier. If I'm walking along or cycling along and I want to send a message, then off it goes, fantastic. But equally, I have sent far too many texts to the plumber about stuff, mundane stuff like I'm just walking up, High Street now, or I've just come out of M&S or whatever, when it's supposed to be for my husband, or I happened to have mentioned something that sounds vaguely similar to plumber, and it's been like, oh right, okay, you want to speak to plumber, not husband, or whatever. Do you think that this is another sort of CES having a bit of a moment and something that's not really going to come to any sort of prominence again, or are we genuinely likely to see more and more voice applications, including in business tech?
I don't think we have much say in it. There will be voice assistants, there will be chatbots that just keep pushing away with it. It's just an area that they seem to love. I think it was Google that had that project where the guy had the really realistic conversation with the chatbot, and it was freakily real.
But that guy, the problem that there always is that if you don't have the American equivalent of a received pronunciation accent, then it's gonna go haywire. I've seen it so many times. Transcription services are mediocre at best. If you're a native English speaker who doesn't have an American RP accent, then you might be okay. If you have a British RP, or an English rather RP accent, then you might be okay. But if you have a regional accent, or Scottish or Welsh or strong Irish accent, then it might struggle. And this is to completely discount people who are non-native English speakers who have an accent as well. Transcription software that I use went completely haywire one time, to the extent that I just had to listen back to the recording and transcribe it myself. It's just a waste of time. And so I can see that being an issue, especially if, for the time being, as is so often the case, it's all targeted primarily at American English.
Quality of your device helps as well. If you've got a good newer device, the microphone's generally better at picking up the sound. And there's also some AI technology that goes with that to pick up the exact sound as well. But yeah, like you say, if you've got a terrible accent, or a not so popular accent, I guess you could say, it doesn't always work. And I often do have to just transcribe interviews from scratch. It just never seems to pick up this terrible Essex accent.
I think there's an argument here that by some that multimodal AI models fix this a bit. I think previous voice assistants worked by essentially doing what you're describing, transcribing, turning a voice command into text, and then using that text as a prompt to do something. Whereas multimodal models don't do that middle step. They are capable of just interpreting voice and taking the entire sentence as context and doing something based on that. So in theory, they might be better at accents, particularly if you've trained it on a lot of different people's accents. That said, I'm always super cynical about voice assistants. I use the assistant on my phone for one thing, and that is setting timers. I don't use it to send texts. I don't use it to call people. I also don't know that many people who do. I think smart speakers were also a thing for a while, but again, I feel like you're either really plugged into that whole like smart office, smart home thing, or you're not. And if you're not, it's unlikely you have one in every room, and therefore it's not actually that convenient to have to walk into the kitchen to ask it to do something. I think something that potentially will be more useful is the kind of other end of this, voice models. So I already use my phone to occasionally read an article out to me or something while I'm cooking or while I'm washing up. That's something that it can do because it just has a voice model built in. It can semi successfully read out a news article, for example, and those will only get better and better. It feels a little bit like the metaverse to me, where it requires a sort of modal shift, an investment by people, that they have to be willing to, in the office environment, be speaking aloud to their laptop, or the metaverse equivalent would be having a big visor on your face in the office.
I think the user is the key, isn't it? It's what the user wants to do with it. I mean, Alexa is useless to me outside of my kitchen, telling me when my food is cooked, or playing my music or the podcasts. What else can you do with it? I can't imagine it's helpful in my job. Every now and then I might ask it to verify something, I guess, or give you some kind of inside information, but often it just says, please go to this website. So it's not the most useful thing. But, it's found its place in my home. It's in my kitchen, and that's where it'll probably stay.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's user and context as well, because it would be an utter nightmare, just having loads of people trying to talk to their smart devices or whatever. It'd be worse than being in a room full of people who are on the phone.
You'd also have all the assistants talking over each other.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me of that Cortana clip. Someone's got like about 50 laptops, and he's just started them all up at the same time. It's just Cortana saying hello, 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 hello. Like, it's just a nightmare scenario. did have a thought just on what we were saying about accents and transcribing technology. Is ITPro is quite nicely spread out across the country. We've got someone from Scotland, someone from Norwich, someone from Dorset. We could get one and test out every single accent with the same sort of script, and we could do reviews on that to see how they work out.
Yes.
See what they pick up and what they don't.
Who's from Norwich, Bobby?
You're from somewhere near there.
I'm from Ipswich.
I know.
Let the record state.
I should have just said Suffolk. Sorry. From the switch.
So let's finish off with some classic CES silliness. Tell us, Bobby, about the rollable laptop.
So this is the Lenovo ThinkBook Plus Gen 6, which is a laptop with a rollable screen that just sort of raises up like a garage door, kind of. I've known about this since MWC 2023 when I saw the proof of concept, which we covered on ITPro. I was skeptical then. I'm skeptical now. I thought it would have died in the years in between, but no, it's still come to light. I don't know who it's for. I can kind of see some use case where, say, if you're coding maybe, or you've got like a chat room that just goes down, the laptop is long enough to see all of the chat at once, but it just doesn't appeal to me in any way, shape or form. It's one of the silliest things I've seen at CES.
It also costs more than Nvidia Project Digit.
What?
It costs $3,500.
You could get a laptop and a monitor and a second monitor for that money. So while we have a MateView SE monitor and you can have it in portrait mode, which does the same thing for like a tenth of that price.
Is there a digital equivalent of steampunk? So like digipunk Romans, that's who it's for.
Potentially, yeah. But it just looks silly. It slowly rolls up. I mean, it doesn't roll either. Like the name suggests that it goes into the keyboard and rolls up like a carpet, but it doesn't. It just sort of slides back and forth, up and down, if you will. It looks super fragile, super pointless. Don't know why we're continuing with it.
So I guess a final thing, Bobby. I don't think that CES is going to change its name anytime soon. It has a lot of branding. There were a lot of consumer devices. But is it becoming something that business leaders should pay more attention to if they can wade past the robot turtles or tortoises, rather?
Yes. So it'll always be consumer focused. It'll be 90% consumer products. And there's always some kind of laptop in there that should interest the IT leaders and IT decision makers. But certainly this year there's a big business chunk to it. And I mean, the Nvidia device really got us excited. That's good. Something we should all pay attention to. But I don't think there's any guarantees they'll do anything like that every year.
Yeah.
You're always going to have to kind of wade through the silliness to find the interesting bits.
Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. But Bobby, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
As always, you can find links to all of the topics we've spoken about today in the show notes and even more on our website at itpro.com.
You can also follow us on LinkedIn, as well as subscribe to our daily newsletter. Don't forget to subscribe to the ITPro podcast wherever you find podcasts. And if you're enjoying the show, let us know by leaving a rating or a review.
We'll be back next week with more from the world of IT. But until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.